and welcome to Life in the Bitter Truth. This podcast is where we seek to understand the deeper, sometimes painful aspects of life and what it all means to us. I'm Vittorio.
And I'm Alex, and I love how you start it off
You like
every
that?
time. It's
I
so
like it.
good.
I think it's
Hello.
great.
It just feels like, hello, Earthlings. We're here to...
I'm getting better at it
Yeah.
as much as I can, so I'm trying.
Right. No, I know.
So, what the hell happened So how was your New Year's?
It was good. I feel like
what'd you do?
we didn't really do anything too crazy. Wasn't really a rager or anything like that. Not that I've ever really spent my New Year's in that way. But we went to Jacob's, my partner's cousin's house. We ate some Japanese curry and worked on a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Yeah. Did you finish the 1,000-piece puzzle?
No, we did not.
Oh, that's too bad.
We didn't.
Okay.
There wasn't. It was good. You know, we went home
It's peaceful.
aware of things. Right. We were not feeling too silly or anything like that. Obviously, driving safe, of course, at all times.
Very good.
But it was definitely a different way that we've spent. I mean, last year we went to his mother's best friend's house. So essentially his Thea, and we went to her house, and you know, we were kind of hunkered down there, and it was fun. But this year was different. You know, what did you do?
We went out to dinner. We were in Pasadena. We did a tapas bar type restaurant where we ordered. I think they had like all you can eat tapas and all you can drink cocktails. And so it was my partner and her youngest son, and we did that for several hours. We took lots of pictures. We wore funny hats because that's the way she likes to do things.
Oh yes.
We also played a game. I forget the name of the game, but it was funny. We had the cards. We had the cards on the game. We were writing our answers, and then people were just watching us. They go, well, they thought we were pretty interesting that we were playing a game while eating dinner.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then afterwards we left because it's obviously the Rose Bowl's the next morning, and they had a private tent set up, so we jumped in there. We played some ping pong, some foosball before we got ran out by security.
So you almost got arrested. You're just being a little hooligan.
Exactly. And then we ran. We got home, and then I think we chilled, and then we fell asleep, and then we woke up, and then we saw the Las Vegas. We couldn't find the New York ball drop.
Yeah, we didn't either. We tried to tune in, and they were showing some depressing video about some war. I wasn't even paying attention, and we missed it essentially. Yeah. But
I said hello to you guys or Happy New Year's, and then I think we went to bed right away after that. So
after the ball drop, I looked at Jacob and I was like, "You ready? I want to go home and lay down."
Exactly.
He's like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" So,
all right. So what's going on this week?
There's lots of things going on. Well, I'm like, the world is falling apart.
Okay.
Just kidding.
It's a new year. The world can't fall apart already.
It's a new year, and yet there's still so much sadness happening everywhere. I don't know. I've been struggling with kind of getting my thoughts together for today's episode and what I want to kind of share with you, or what kind of conversation I want to have with you.
Right.
I think a lot about the content that I consume, and it's a lot of, true crime, right? I'm in the kitchen washing the dishes, and you're hearing how some person got like axed, and I'm like so tuned in, right? And then other times,
what's with you and your sister like all this dark
shit,
murder,
right? And
Menendez, and
everything. And you had told me once, like, hey, you better be careful about like so much overconsumption of this type of material because it can start messing with your head. And then
desensitizes you.
Exactly. Right. And so thankfully I don't think I've gotten there. And this, topic today will kind of touch on that a little bit more. I don't think I've become desensitized. In fact, I think I've become very sensitive to it.
Right.
So I feel it all around me. But I've also just been really into this channel on YouTube called The Soft White Underbelly, which most people know what it is. And, Mark, the journalist that leads this channel, is interviewing lots of different folks. And I've become very addicted to watching those videos, and it's, helped with my empathy, right? My understanding of these different things, but it's also really challenged me specifically.
It's like hoarders. You can't look away.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'm like so tuned in. I'm like, okay, the title of this video is, I grew up in a sex cult, for example.
Oh, good Lord.
And I'm like, she hasn't started talking about the cult. Like we're 24 minutes in and she hasn't even mentioned it. So what's going to happen now? How is he going to pull his, so I come from a journalism background, so I'm really interested in him as an interviewer and all that good stuff. But even recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, which is the H3 podcast. And you hear me listening to it a lot. And they mentioned this girl named Lily Phillips. Lily Phillips. Yeah. She's been a huge conversation recently on YouTube and everywhere you can think of. And we wanted, or the podcast, it's live every couple of days out of the weekend. They were talking about how they wanted to show this documentary that came out about her where she was going to be sleeping with 100 men in one day.
Oh my God.
And, they wanted to stream this live and do a live reaction. Then they decided, actually, no, let's not do that because we don't want to celebrate it, or we don't want to like show anything that's going to get the video taken down.
Sure.
So all of that to say, I've been feeling very anxious about and realizing this just inherent sexual nature of social media recently. And I see it everywhere. I feel like I'm very hyper aware of it. And it makes me very uncomfortable.
Well, it's funny. That's this particular individual. I got wind of the, I guess, the interview that she did or whatever it was prior to doing her, her little documentary or whatever it was through, some other Politico groups that I follow, right? And they were just talking about how just terrible, just outrageous this girl is, how damaged she is. And I was just so shocked at the whole premise of what she's doing, all to make money.
Yeah, and I mean I can give some context for the listeners that aren't really aware of who she is or don't really consume any media that would even touch on something like this. But she is an OnlyFans model from Britain, I believe, and she set out to do, in her words, a social experiment to see how many, if she could beat the record of sleeping with a certain amount of men in one day. And so essentially what she did to do that, in this documentary, they're kind of showing the process, right? The logistics of, do we, make sure everyone's been tested? How do people get flights to Britain if they're not from here? And they have to all be followers of my OnlyFans account and pay a certain amount and all these things. Wow. And then she's thinking, okay, mathematically speaking, if I wanted to be 100 people in a span of 24 hours, how many minutes per person, right? When can I shower? When can I eat? Yeah. All these different things, right? And so this documentary is, you don't see anything. A lot of it is blurred, of course, thank God, but it's still extremely graphic.
Well, the whole process is it's beyond, it's more than just graphic. It's something lost. I think when I looked at it, it was just, it's just that bad. You can't look away because it's just so disgusting. You don't have sympathy for the person. You don't have, you have a little bit of like, what's with this person? Where are her parents? Why is this girl so lost that she would do something so disgusting? And I'm thinking, it's for money.
Right.
I mean, that's all I can think of.
It's kind of what it's come down to.
It's just completely disgusting. So.
And in the documentary, she mentions that her parents are okay with it, essentially, that they're very supportive of her.
I don't buy that at all.
No.
I mean, is it possible? Certainly. In this world that we live in today, anything's possible with people. Can her parents be okay with it? Well, the question I have is, are her parents benefiting from it, right? It strikes me to this thought of those other individuals that are big on social media and how they have basically used their sexuality to become multimillionaires, and the management of their outward physical expression is what's got them, wealthy, because they've got no talent, right? So this girl apparently doesn't have any talent either, so she's just using her physical body to sell things. That's prostitution to me. So
100%.
So I mean,
and in the documentary, she mentions, can't remember if the interviewer poses it to her or what, but she makes a comment at the end, when she's, tired, looking like she's just been hit by a train, essentially. The interview asks her, how do you feel? They're trying to gauge how she's feeling after a whole day of barely being able to shower and eat a little bit of food because she had to go through all of these people. And she says that she feels like a prostitute. And it's interesting because I watched these other interviews on Soft White Underbelly, for example, where Mark, the journalist, is interviewing women on Figueroa from downtown, from Pomona, women that do this work every day. Essentially, from my mind, a lot of the time is for survival, right?
Okay.
It's that, yes, there is a conversation of, are they addicted to the fast money? He always asks them, are you addicted to the fast money? Is that what it is? Do you have a capacity to do some other form of work? And essentially, they've been doing this since they were 12, 13 years old.
But that particular show and this other gal that's out of England, it is very different, because if you were to watch the one show that she's speaking of, these people are addicted to drugs. I mean, they look like they are completely weathered and gone through hell and back and are still in hell.
Right.
This girl is doing it purely. She's a business person.
Right.
I don't care what you
and
call
she
it.
doesn't want to be called that in the document. She's like, I don't want to call myself a businesswoman.
Bullshit. She's got 9 people working for her. She's doing this. She's selling her body.
Right.
And she's making content, and people are consuming this garbage.
Because you can make an argument that, these women on, that are prostituting themselves, like they have grown, they have this long line of story attached to them of how they got there, and whether it was abuse or drugs. He always asks them, are drugs a part of this? And they always say, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it without the drugs, or in order for me to afford the drugs, I have to do this. So when you look at this girl, Lily, she's, fresh faced. She's looks like she's wealthy. She looks, like she's never had a care in the world, essentially. And so
I think she was a college student too.
Yeah,
she's like 23 years old.
Yeah, she's very, very young. She's younger than me, and she shared that, in college, when she was going to college, she was already
promiscuous.
She was already a hoe. She said in the doc, to quote her, she said she was already a slut or a hoe or whatever she said, and
that's become a very easy word to throw out about them. Women,
slut or hoe,
girls,
or
both.
Yeah.
They seem to throw that, and there's a proudness. They're very proud of that concept. I don't understand it personally, so. I don't get it. Yeah, so she threw that out there in this interview or this conversation.
Yeah. And so I would say, when we think about where these things come from, I know Lily didn't want to be called a prostitute in her own documentary, where she's chronicling like what she's doing here, right? Which is essentially selling her body for money and fame and clout and all that good stuff. Whereas these other women on the street are trying to survive.
Well,
and that's not, and there's no excuse for that either, right? And a lot of these women say, I don't want to do this forever. I don't want to, but I'm afraid that I might just have to. And, he's interviewed prostitutes that are in their 60s that are still doing this work.
It's...
And so what is it, right? Is it a mental illness? Is it...
a lost morality? I mean, what is it with females, right? That drives them to do this? Now, remember, this could sound very critical, right? So I understand that sometimes a person has to do what they have to do to eat.
But she didn't have to do that.
That might be, some of the prostitutes that are down on Figueroa or they're in Pomona or wherever it is. In other cities as well. But this particular girl, that's not what she's doing.
Right.
This is done deliberately for one intentful purpose, to make money. And she apparently is making real money. So
a shit ton.
So, so where is this girl? To me, seems so utterly broken. That's the way I take it. I know it's a harsh criticism. However, it's an opinion that I have. I would never, you can't conceive of your children doing these kinds of things. So what is it? What's broken in this kid's world, this girl's world, that she wants to do this kind of stuff? Is it the materialism?
And your question posing it as like, are females lost, or is it our
society,
boys that are giving into this, that are paying for this service? Is it the parents allowing? It's so deep and so vast, this issue, and it's difficult because you look to yourself, right? I mean, even last night I was trying to put this documentary on again, in my bedroom with my partner to see, maybe he might have a different perspective, or he could, help me put my thoughts together so I could have this conversation with you here
Right.
today. And he
Right.
just told me honestly, like, I don't want to watch this. Like, this disgusts me, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I think we should change it. And I'm like,
yeah.
well, and I tried to explain to him, well, it's because we're trying to have this conversation with my dad and all that. And he's like, no, I get that. I understand. He's like, but just be really careful on how you pose these things, because you don't want to give further attention to bad people and bad things.
Agreed.
So
this is what he said. Totally agreed. I mean, we're not trying to give this girl any kind of publicity. We're just trying to like ask the questions. What is so broken about this individual where money has become that important to her?
And she's not the only one. I mean,
No,
I believe she is the first, or one of the first people to put out a notice to all of her OnlyFans people saying, hey, if you want the real deal in person,
right,
wham bam shabam thing, then sign up and do the lottery.
What's funny about this is, so she tees this thing up. She first starts with all of these subscribers, I guess they're called, to her OnlyFans, which I guess in OnlyFans itself, from what I've read and what I understand it to be, it's no different than a cam girl. You're basically doing private things, pictures and stuff like that for subscribers.
Yeah, it initially started out, I believe, through just being able to see racier pictures than online, right? So that's how it started. And
now
then
it's full-blown pornography now.
Yeah, now you can ask for things and get very specific stuff for a price, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And so that's kind of how OnlyFans has evolved. And working in media, working in TV, I've worked with sex workers and people that are. Last year, I worked with the dominatrix. I've worked with women who are in the podcast industry talking about sex. I've worked with strippers and porn stars, and it's interesting because these women are oftentimes my own age, a little bit old or a little bit older than me, and I look across the table at them and I just realize, oh my God, we're so fucking different.
It's not to be prude or anything like that.
No,
right?
no.
So I look at it as, over my career, I've gone to gentlemen's clubs and those kinds of things, and it doesn't resonate with you because you're so apart from what you're watching to your home life, right? And it doesn't. It starts becoming more and more prevalent in your head. I think now in these modern times with all this social media stuff that we have out there, I've got 2 daughters, and my concern is, oh my God,
what if that was my daughter?
what if that my daughter? Like, that's just scary. And this particular individual, she was indicating that her father's friends are subscribers to her OnlyFans,
And she was kind of laughing at,
and she was kind of laughing
like,
about
in a
it.
coy way.
So again, there's something wrong
Which
there.
makes me want to just jump off a building. Like, the cringe is crazy because I'm like, God, even, I mean, she's saying her father's friends. Imagine her own father having the capacity to look up his child on the internet and being able to see your child topless or whatever. It's like,
it's the entertainment industry itself. It's a little difficult because, it's funny, you watch certain shows on television and, or you're streaming or whatever you're doing. And, it's like what is it, Johnny Depp's daughter, and that last show that she did was it's just so over the top. How do you look at that without thinking?
Her new movie, Nosferatu or something like that. It's like a horror film. It's very gory. I heard it was shit, and then other people like keep watching it numerous times. And I had told my boyfriend Jacob, I said, babe, do you want to watch it? Like, everyone's talking about it, and he's like, no, I don't really want to watch it. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because supposedly my coworker said that you see Lily's nipples, and I don't want to see her nipples.
Yeah,
that's what he told me.
I mean, and
I'm like, oh, you do? Oh, wow, okay. Then I guess not.
I mean, look, topless stuff, and even
he just said he just said, I just don't want to see her nipples.
It's just become so. It's been out there for years. Don't get me wrong. So
no.
This is not about being prudish or anything like that. This is about connecting these individuals, like this one girl, and that other, the other show that you're watching, to how we, especially me as a father of 2 daughters and a son, I just, for me, that's a difficult thing to think about where um, I spent a lifetime protecting my daughters. Um,
So how did you do it?
yeah,
So when
yeah,
I can say, like, when I look at pictures of the women in my family, the women in my life, um, all have always had amazing examples.
sure,
All of the women in
sure.
my family have always carried themselves with such respect and poise and beauty, and just they've just been incredible.
Simply
So
put, right?
fashion
Yeah,
forward.
yeah, sure.
I've seen their routines, and I've seen the sacredness of caring for themselves.
Hmm.
Even looking back at photos of my own mother at my age, before she had us, when she had us, her outfits and her hair. My mother was always, blessed with, the aesthetic, right? That is popular, having a larger chest or whatever, right? Having that Latin
The
body.
endowments, okay,
Yes, she was
physical,
always
okay,
blessed in that way, but
okay.
she didn't feel the need to share it all the time, and at least through photos that I've seen,
Yeah,
right? And so, even my aunts, and I don't know, I've just always had really great examples
yeah.
of
No, I think
that.
I think the honest answer is upbringing, right? So I
And
come.
none of the women in our family are religious inherently.
No,
So that
no,
I think that's
no.
important to
Yeah,
share, because I think I pull inspiration of how I carry myself through my connection with
sure,
God.
sure,
But just to say, they
sure.
weren't like that.
Sure. So your mother, as an example,
Hmm.
right? Modesty is an important part because she was raised old school, right?
Hmm.
Her mother was very strict
Hmm.
about where she could go, when she could go, and who she could go with,
Hmm.
all these things. Your stepmother,
Hmm.
again, very modest, very respectful, did not like you wearing red lipstick
Hmm.
or red fingernails. It was just an inappropriate thing to do for a young lady.
Mm.
That's for an older lady,
Mm.
somebody who's married, but not for young. So I think the women that have been in your life have always demonstrated that level of no, 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 no. That's not what you do. That's not what a lady does. And I think I remember always that was one of the beneficial aspects of having strong moral women around you
Mm.
guys, because I think that was kind of what I always took away. And then I had my own conservative mindset of
Right.
I have two daughters, no one's going to touch them.
Right.
They're gonna be respectful. They're gonna respect themselves. That's
I
the way
mean,
I always took it.
I will say, I think it's important to say that it was difficult, right? When you're growing up and you're
Sure,
seeing girls, I
sure.
remember, I can't remember how Jacob asked me this question, but I shared with him that in the fourth grade, I got in trouble by, Miss Rangel. So we went to the same elementary school, my
Okay.
partner and I. And so he was talking about, what was the one time you got super in trouble? And I was like, oh my God, fourth grade, Miss Rangel. I stole, well, one, I stole it, right? So I
Yeah.
stole something from my mom. She had a roll-on eyeshadow stick that was from JLo's makeup brand at the time, and it was silver and it was glittery, so it was like an extra thing that my
Right.
mom used for her makeup. And I took it, and I remember putting some on my eyes and like doing a little shimmer.
Yeah.
I'm in the fourth grade. I'm only wearing shimmer on my eyes, so everyone's like, "What the fuck are you? What are you doing?"
Right. Right.
And my teacher told me, you need to go to the bathroom and take that off. And I
Mm-hmm.
told her, no, I don't want to. And she's like, well, I'm gonna call your mom. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. And so I went to the bathroom, scraped it off of my eyes, and then I would put
Right.
it on at lunch, take it off after lunch, and she would tell me, it's not completely washed off, take it off,
Yeah.
or else I'm going to call your
I
parents.
mean, you
Because
guys.
she knew I took it.
Yeah.
So she was trying to, and she knew, okay, you're a little girl.
Right.
You're
Right.
in the fourth grade, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't be wearing makeup, right? So I just remember being like, oh, I just want to express myself. I just want to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be all these things.
That's right.
And sometimes I understood why, right? I understood why I had
Maybe
to be
now.
now,
Yeah.
right? And my dad would tell me, look, you need to carry yourself a certain way because
Right.
you are, when you're older, you're going to be happy about all these things. But right now, we just have to be careful with
Right.
you.
Well,
You
it's
know what I
funny.
mean?
For me, I had the enforcers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The your stepmom,
Mm-hmm.
great enforcer.
Mm-hmm.
No makeup. You can't do that. You're too young. You're too
Mm-hmm.
young. You're too young. She was trying to convey a certain level of standard because you're a young lady. She did it with her with your younger sister too. I mean, it's just the way it is. It is a battle for you girls to want to wear the makeup and the eyelashes,
Yeah.
and it's just slow it down is what we always told you guys. And that is something that is part of raising daughters,
And
being
it's
protective.
and it's so funny when we look back at old pictures of me. Jacob will just laugh because he'll be like, "Oh my God, you had the baby fat in your face, you had your tummy, you didn't care about sucking in your tummy back then because you were a little girl." And I was like, "Yes, I will say, from 0 to 15 years old, I was a girl. Like, I looked like a girl. I was awkward. My teeth were all fucked up. And, I really, at that age, 13-year-olds right now don't look like they're 13, right?
Yeah.
So there was this certain level of innocence and just charm that I had as a child, because I was a child and I was treated as one.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't really give me much pull.
Right.
Something that I thought was extra, right, was the red nail polish, for example. Whereas, growing up in a divorced home, my mom would be like, "Look, you can paint your nails electric blue or red, but you're going to have to take it off on Wednesday or whatever. And I don't want to waste money. So just put a color you think your dad will like." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is just a color." Like, me being the creative, imaginative child, I'm like, I love all colors. So I just want to fucking do some crazy shit on my nails.
But remember, this didn't come from me.
It came from my stepmother.
Yeah, because I, it's like, okay,
yeah,
whatever.
My dad was just, I think you gave her that authority to teach me.
Yeah.
And God, did I just hate it. I just didn't think it made sense all the time.
What kid does, right?
Of course, and I was also the first daughter. I was the guinea pig to all of these things. And so now looking at my sister, I'm like, "Ooh, girl, dad would never let me fucking do that," right?
We've crossed a little bit more lenient with your younger one. Her mother's still very stiff as it relates to certain elements of it, because obviously we got to protect her, right? But
I share very openly that sleepovers were not a thing. Playing outside with neighbors, unless my brother was there, and even if he was there, right? Just being very, very careful with me. You teaching me from a very young age, hey, if someone touches you, if someone grabs you, you scream bloody murder. You'd always tell me, scream bloody murder,
fight back,
and fight back. All this stuff, right? So constantly growing up, knowing that people are scary out there. And so to see women around me, friends of mine, people that I talk to, right? Not every woman is going to act the way that I do or carry themselves the same way. So
some of your friends didn't either.
Exactly. So it's difficult because, now as I'm entering, my late 20s, early 30s, I'm trying to think about, okay, who are the women that inspire me? Who are the women that make me feel empowered to be the person I want to be. Right. And a lot of them just so happen to be religious. They just so happen to be married, and many of them have children. A lot of them I've been blessed to have in Jacob's family. His cousin's wife is an amazing person to me, and she carries herself so well, and she's such an amazing mother, and she's beautiful, and she doesn't feel the need to go and show everybody everything. And, I love her style, and she's just like got her thing going, and all her sisters are great too. And they all carry themselves the same way.
It's funny. It's very fundamental, right? So my partner, there's no such thing as a sleepover, because she won't do it out of respect for your sister, my youngest. And you would think, oh, that's kind of silly. Not really. It's actually very respectful to show that level of
boundary,
of boundaries, upbringing, and because we don't want to show an idea to your daughter, to your sister, my daughter, that's okay. It really isn't, So that's those are some of the small things that she does, and that she's done, and of course I think that's pretty much throughout how I've always tried to. Kind of show you guys that idea as well. So,
and you would tell us all the time, like who you keep and who you carry around you. It says something about you.
That's right.
And there were many times where you told me, how does that make you feel knowing that your friend is doing this, or your friend is carrying themselves this certain way? A friend that you are very close to. And I'd be like, well, it's not me. So, and you'd be like, well,
it's who you associate. It's who you associate with. Your friends are those, you're a reflection of the people you do associate with. It really is. It's, it's terrible, but it is.
Yeah. And so I feel like as I've grown older, my circle has become smaller and smaller.
Of course.
Whereas, the people that ride with me are gonna stick around, and the ones that catch the drift that I'm going on and they don't like it, then it might not make sense for them. But I feel like my modesty and how I carry myself, of course it's subjective to the person, but for me, I try to base myself around, okay, I'm getting a little bit older, so I'm not able to wear all the things I thought I used to want to wear. And even back then, I would tell my partner, like, oh, I would have loved to wear this at 13, but I couldn't, right?
Right.
So how can I wear it now? And it's just like coming to that point where it's like, okay, now I need to learn, maybe I can't wear, even if it has shorts under, even if I have tights on, maybe I can't wear a mini skirt anymore because it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just not flowing with what I'm trying to get at here. I think as I'm trying to start this, or really like, dive deep on this path that I'm on, where I'm, going to church often, and I'm, being a badass at work and all these other things that I care about. I'm teaching, right? I can't teach with my chest hanging out.
Sure.
Right. I'm teaching, a class of middle schoolers poetry.
Sure.
Right. I have to bring myself down.
You have to carry yourself a certain way.
And carry myself.
You had brought up something about religion. So, we're all, we practice religion in many facets in our home, right? So we're, you were raised both Christian and Jewish. You spun off in Catholic and similar. It's all Christianity, but religion in itself is an important part of, I think, the foundation. At least it is in my home. I believe in it deeply. We don't practice it, religiously, so to speak. But
it is a culture of the home.
It's part of it, yeah. So religion never really played a fundamental role in. It probably did a little, maybe a component of it raising you guys, right? But the modesty components and stuff, I think it's just, to me, it's just inherent. You just don't let your kids do things or wear things that are just age inappropriate. Today, it's all all things are, on the table. Anything goes, kind of a thing.
Right.
Which to me is a little bit tough.
Yeah, and it's funny because this was probably a year ago at this point, but Jacob had gone outside to throw the trash out at his house, and he goes outside with his shirt off, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. And he's like, what? I'm throwing the trash away. And I was like, put a shirt on, like exactly. No one needs to see all that. And he's like, oh my God, like I never thought about it my way. I was like, yes, like this needs to be. And he's like, well, what if we go to the beach? I'm like, the beach is different. The pool is different. Funny. We're both going to be in bathing suits, and there's going to be a certain amount of body being shown at the pool. And here I am, like trying to push modesty on him, which is interesting.
That's actually very funny. I'm sitting there thinking about that. I have never left the house without a shirt on.
I never saw you
T-shirt.
That way.
Otherwise, I think that came from my parents, right? Because my parents were the same way. You never leave the house without a shirt, pants, or something they're wearing.
A belt, everything.
And shoes.
Yeah.
Don't you dare walk outside barefooted, you know? So these are these things that you're raised with, and you just carry that forward. You try to carry all the positive sides of it forward, and some things you just don't even think about. You're just like, no, don't do that, right?
And I didn't think about where it came from. Me trying to tell him, hey, like your body's sacred too. Like, I don't think everyone needs to see you without a shirt. Or his brother's last partner, was sitting in the living room, and Jacob just got out of the shower, and everyone's around and everyone's getting ready to go somewhere, and I told Jacob, make sure you're clothed before you go into the living room, because I don't want her to see you like that. Of course. He'd be like, babe, she doesn't give a shit. I'm like, but I give a shit.
That's right.
Because she's not going to come out without a bra on and a shirt over. Like, she's going to pull herself together as well, so you don't see her that way. And it's so funny. It happens all the time where if we're around his family and everyone's relaxing, we're watching a movie, and he's just like, do you want to get more comfortable? And I know what he means by that. He means, do you want to take off your bra, put on another shirt or whatever? I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'd rather just wait till I go to sleep. And he's like, I promise you, no one is going to see that. You're just laying down. I'm like, no, but if I get up or if I adjust myself, no one needs to see the shape of my body underneath clothes. And he's just like, it's really gotten to that point where I'm like, look, no, yes, when someone's looking at me with
Right.
with a shirt on or whatever, I'm going to work. People are going to perceive whatever the
Sure.
hell
Sure.
they want to perceive in their imagination.
Sure.
But the whole point is to not give even more than you need to.
You know, there's a certain level
And that might be extreme to
No,
not want to
well,
have,
you know what?
I'm always wearing a bra all the time.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with a young woman or a woman expressing themselves in a way where they're accentuating their God-given attributes, right? I don't have a problem with any of that stuff. That's fine. I think I have a problem with it if it's a little girl or a teenager.
Or depending on the setting.
And depending on the setting, of course it is. And so we talk about morality. Where does it come from? You know, the easy answer is simply it comes from your parents.
Your
I mean, that's just the
family.
reality. My mom dressed very, I wouldn't say modest, but appropriate for where she was at the times that she was at, right? Mind you, these are the 50s and 60s, so it's a very different generation. But even your mom,
Even my mom.
your your stepmom, very, very appropriately dressed.
If I would
for
go
the experiences,
and bother my mom in the room, she's getting out of bed. She's like, "Look, let me put a bra on and get my my clothes on. Let me not be in my pajamas or whatever." And
Right.
when I'm talking to you, like always pulling yourself together for the specific person you're talking to.
It's this concept of morality or whatever. It is definitely taught home. The problem that we have with young people today is, or the generation that's come up with the
Social
smartphones,
media.
right? And having such easy access to things. I mean, we see it in our news, in our politics, where they're trying to ban certain things from younger people. I think it's TikTok is looking to get banning Instagram, TikTok, all of them for anybody under a certain age. Which, you know what, it's probably a reasonable thing to do because there's so much out there where these kids are influenced. You didn't grow up with a smartphone. Neither did your brother.
Yeah.
Neither did your stepbrother.
If we wanted to know what a word meant, or how to spell it, you'd be like, look it up in the dictionary. That was like the famous words. And I'd be like, oh my God, how do I look it up in the dictionary if I don't know how to spell the word? And you'd be like, well, if you don't know how to spell it, sound it out, or maybe you don't get to look it up yet.
That's right.
If you don't want to try.
So it's your sister who's had it's your younger sisters who's had the smartphone for at least, it's probably 5 years.
Much longer than that, I would
Maybe
say.
5 or 6 years, I think it's been. And, it's a lot of it is now is, we would chase her off the phone. We would shut down her service. This was her mother mostly doing that. And she would call, I remember she would call me up and say, you got to make sure she's not on these websites. Kids are very smart. They come up with different handles or
handles.
And they would create different what do you call
accounts?
Accounts. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. That's what these young kids do. You guys got a phone that you could actually text. I remember that, and that was a big thing for you guys.
You had to press the button a couple of times to get the letter, but
you had the texting, so the flip phones. But she's just had the luxury of those kinds of equipments, and I say luxury in the sense that the technology's there for her, but it has caused a little bit of problem over the years, but not dramatically. She's your sister is pretty well covered, protected, and not let to do as much as she'd probably want to do. She gets she's gotten to do more than you did.
Oh, 100%.
But there is also
it's crazy.
Making sure we're talking to the other parents, we're we're getting to know her friends and all of these things that
you
gotta do.
A funny thing that Jacob and I say is that he had come to our house growing up to swim in the pool, and he was the only boy that my mom let me invite to my birthday parties and stuff like that. So it was funny that my mom, maybe because she had a good relationship with his parents, or
probably
deemed him safe, right? That she was like, okay, fine, only Jacob, right? And it was just interesting that that's a funny thing that we say, because other than that, I wasn't allowed to have, when I did get a phone, my little flip phone, I wasn't allowed to have boys' phone numbers, or I wasn't allowed to do anything like that. And I think I knew why, and I understood. I understood why.
Yeah, it's funny. So, Victoria, your sister wanted, I guess, a boyfriend, right? And I was adamant that isn't going to happen. I don't want the distractions. School first, right? And
I would
so
never fucking bring that shit up.
I
Hell
remember,
no.
so this kid, I met this kid. This kid called me and asked me if he could meet me. And I said, okay, fine. I was reluctant to do it. I talked to her mother. Me, hard ass. I went like, this isn't going to work for me. My partner was telling me, oh, you gotta kind of be a little bit more even-minded, open, whatever. Okay, fine. So I met the kid, right? I grilled him.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did.
I mean, they're like 16, 17 years old.
And I said, no, that's 16 and 15, 16. And I said, absolutely, if I find out you are just being a distraction, it's gone. You're done with, get away from me or get away from her.
Yeah.
So, you got to be a little bit more lenient because you want, you guys to have experiences, certainly.
Right.
But she was never let alone without a chaperone. Now, I know she went to the football games, right?
Yeah.
I didn't go to the football games. I think I went once, but her mother always at the football games. And her mother, like a hawk, she's going to watch her.
Fuck
so that was great. So that was good stuff.
You're like,
so
I'm good there.
we did our part to make sure that she grew up at the straight and narrow, the most straight and narrow you can, even with all of this, technology that's there. And we know that there's nothing that you kids, if the kids are watching, any kid, you can't pull the wool over our eyes.
Oh,
we
for
know
sure.
everything.
You guys have done way worse.
We've got spies, we've got friends, we've got parents that are watching, teachers that are watching, brothers and sisters that are watching. So there are things that we've been able to pick up on. We've been able to disseminate and make sure that we make some tweaks here and there. At least this is with your sister.
Yeah. And I mean, Jacob will ask me all the time, like, how did you become the way that you are? He always wants to know the origin stories of where my thoughts come from, or, me telling him, put a shirt on, like, don't go outside like that. Your body's sacred to me.
Well, who do you attribute it to?
Huh? Oh, of course. I always say, babe, what the fuck? What do you think? My dad. He's like, oh, right. It's this constant feeding of information of, carry yourself a certain way, carry yourself with self-respect. Boys only want one thing. They don't give a shit about you.
That's right.
When you're growing up, and I ask my sister all the time, like, I'd always tell her, don't give any energy to a boy until you're like 30. Because don't waste. I told her, if I could start all over again and just start right now with this partner, that would be perfect. That would be amazing. I would have saved myself so much time and energy and hurt and all these things. And I understand you gotta kiss a couple frogs before you find your prince, all that good shit. But it's like, God, I tell her all the time, like, do not waste your time, your energy, anything on people that don't have good intentions. And just because you want attention, right? Is it, are you wanting attention? Do you want to be validated by a boy or a man because of whatever shit you got going on? And I think about Lily Phillips, is it, look at me, I want to be seen. Please fill this void in me.
That's exactly, good word. She has a void.
Yeah, fill this void in me so I can feel sexier. I can feel all these things, when that should be, that's self-love, that's self-respect. It's unfortunately has to be learned over time.
Well, I mean, I think you said self-respect. This girl has no self-respect. Where my two daughters, you were taught self-respect. You were taught to respect yourselves.
I will say it is something that has to be maintained, though. You can be taught something, but it has to be consistently maintained.
Sure.
And so anytime that I've allowed someone to scream at me, call me names, whatever, and I let it go over my head or said, okay, whatever, right? That is your self-respect taken a notch down, right? And you have to build it back up again and say, actually, next time I'm not going to let you do that. Yeah. And you have to really follow through with that.
Sure, of course. So of course. And that's, that's part of raising girls. I mean, unfortunately, I've always had a tougher time raising girls because I have to be so much more overprotected. Remember the old saying, boys are terrible. Yeah. Boys are wrong. Don't let them talk to you. Don't. I mean, I even remember saying that to you all the time. My
stepmother telling me, I think she had picked me up from school and she saw a boy hug me goodbye. Oh, bye, whatever. And he, I guess in her mind, she thought that he hugged me for too long. Oh. And I was like, fucking clueless. I don't know what the, you guys are seeing something in a totally different way than I am as a kid. And so she tells me, here, come over here, hug me. We're standing in your room. And I'm like, okay. So I go and hug her, and she hugged me for the same amount of time that this boy, I don't even remember who it was, but this boy that had hugged me. And she said, do you want to know why boys hug girls? And I was like, why? Fucking, this is some fucking in the cut shit. But she's like, so they can feel your chest on their chest. And I was like, what?
There you go.
I was like, no, that is not.
You probably thought she was crazy, but that's the reality.
I did. And it's like, I still feel like that might be, granted, she's trying to teach me a lesson through all of this, right? Be very careful about how boys touch you and stuff like that. That is the lesson. Yeah. But now when I think about it, I'm like, when I hug my partner, I'm just trying to hug him to embrace him. And I know he's not trying to feel my chest against his, like, I just know that that's not the case. But it's just very interesting because I remember her telling me, come over here, let me show you, like. And so you guys are giving us all these lessons as girls, especially me, because I was the only girl for the longest time. How did that transfer on to Gianni? Because I know for a fact, like, yes, a lot of girls are broken. A lot of girls don't have that male figure in their life to tell them that they're beautiful. So then they have to go and find it elsewhere and all this stuff, right? When you need those foundational, things. From the beginning.
Sure. I think it's a good question, right? How did
but
raising...
also the boys with the issue as well.
Let's talk about that first. So, this girl who's selling herself, she's selling herself to men. Mm-hmm. So, it's these guys, I won't even call them gentlemen, these guys who need this idea that they want to hit it, this girl, and I'm saying that's disgusting. And so, but they spend money to see this girl in all
and they're
kinds
not
of
asking for her tests or her health screenings or anything like. They're not asking for it. They just know that, holy shit, I follow this girl. I have this parasocial relationship with her on OnlyFans.
It's not even a real relationship, but that's what they think it is. So you used the word to describe incel, incel culture, and describe what that means.
This had been the first time my dad ever. I was like, Dad, they're just incels, and he's like, what? What the fuck is that? Incel culture are these boys that are intimidated by women. They're afraid to talk to women. They, are essentially basement guys that live with their parents and they don't leave, and a lot of people, the argument is that incel culture became heightened through.
So these are the
Trump,
active shooters.
Through Trump, through the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things. And these are just examples that people are trying to, to connect through. But, I asked Jacob today, what is it? Tell me, like, what's going on? He's like, oh, these guys they're afraid of women. They're afraid of them. They're intimidated by them. And so they don't know how to talk to them. And in turn, that forces them to be extremely angry with women and hating women. Or, they oftentimes, and even in the documentary.
So they connect through a barrier, which is a screen. So the concept of having to be, or having actually the ability to go and actually touch this girl that they've connected with in the basement through a screen.
That's the full circle moment.
It's pretty crazy.
And she did say, in a very celebratory way, as if she was doing some sort of charity work, that, a few of the men were virgins, a few of the men hadn't, so she felt like, I'm doing something.
She's doing a service.
Exactly. Gotcha. And she wanted to make sure they were happy, and it wasn't about her, it was about them. And I'm like, okay, but you're not an escort then.
It's pretty nasty. Again, very broken individual. So you asked the question regarding raising you guys versus my son. Well, first and foremost, we were taught respect of women. And that's not to say that we didn't have girlfriends and, natural hormones and all those things that you do as a young people, right? But the one thing I always remember telling your brother was exactly that. No means no. Mm-hmm. And respect is an important part of connecting with somebody. And so my son grew up with the ability to talk to girls and
go out and go to the park
and have fun, and he enjoyed himself, and he had
and the girls loved my brother.
He's a good kid.
Loved my brother, and he's funny, he's charming, he's all that stuff. So I had friends from elementary school all the way to high school, you know, your brother's such an asshole. I broke up with him because of this. I'm like, dude, you got with my brother too? Oh my God. You know, he was always getting with, you know, just having fun, doing his thing. Right. And so, you know, I would always be like, is my brother like all the other guys? I don't think so.
No, he wasn't. I think every guy probably has a moment, or well, whatever. Your son, your brother had his moments and stuff. But no, I think he knew respect. He was taught respect. And as he got older, you know, there was those elements of making sure that you do right, you protect yourself. If you're going to double wrap it, if you have to, whatever it takes.
Which is so funny to hear you that you had those conversations with him, because I had never had those conversations with you. And you had told me, if you get pregnant, however that happens, you know, because I would watch like movies like Juno, right? One of my favorite movies growing up, you know, and you would tell me, if you get pregnant, the next day, all your stuff's going to be outside.
That's right.
And that's it.
That's right.
So you know, I'm like, oh shit, no, I don't want my stuff to be outside. I don't want to go hungry. Who's going to feed me, right? So I was completely afraid.
You know what it is?
Of sex and that type of thing. No. And I knew I wasn't old enough for it. That's for sure.
Right.
And I was just afraid of losing everything. So I wasn't a bad kid in that way.
The intelligent conversation is to have a serious conversation with your children, right? And it should start early. It should be very open. You should describe and discuss all of those elements of connected relationships. Now, does that sound like me? It doesn't. But it is my partner's perspective, and it's completely plausible. It's completely accurate to do all of those things. And you do have a fear factor. Me, I have a fear factor. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm at least not going to talk.
Even my mom. My mom told me, look, I would ask her, Mommy, when are you going to have the birds and the bees conversation with me? And she's like, and I'm probably like 25 the last time I asked her this question. And she's like, when I think you're old enough to be having sex. And I was like, oh, sick. Cool.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. I think you may have asked me that same question. I said, why? Boys suck.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. And so, again, probably not the best parenting advice, but it was something that was clearly something that I was uncomfortable having.
Right.
And because the perspective is you're not supposed to even be discussing that kind of stuff. You're a young lady, you'll get married, and then, you know, that was the mentality. I know it's not reality, but that was the mentality.
And it's funny because, you know, the partner that I have now is the most involved in my life than any person I've ever been with, most involved with my family. He's just all around, wants to be in it. And I appreciate that, because I hadn't had that before. And I always craved a strong family connection with my partner. Right. And so, you know, he's here for a lot of the banter. He's here for a lot of it. And, you know, even recently we went to Target, but my sister and I went to Target, and I snuck away to, you know, buy a box of condoms, and I bought something for you, and you know, you asked me how much was it, so I could Zelle you or whatever, and I'm like, it was this amount, and you didn't believe me, and then you're like, where's the receipt? And I'm like, oh my God, it's on the receipt. And Jacob doesn't know what the fuck's going on, but Victoria puts two and two together, and she's like, oh my God. And I'm like freaking out. I feel my face getting red, and you're going down the list of the receipt, and you're seeing, and you just stop there, and you're like, oh, that's fucking disgusting. Oh, you guys are disgusting. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's just...
Yeah, I see. I mentally tuned that out because I did not want to have that memory ingrained in my head.
But it's so funny that it's like, even that, right? Even me as almost 28 years old, seeing something on a receipt, and the duality of that is this girl in Britain talking about so openly that her dad's friends watch her or subscribe to her OnlyFans. It's just like...
Yeah, it's just...
some people are just built a little bit different.
Again, I'll say it again and I'll say it again. Dark problem with that person. There's something broken. I know a lot of people don't like that, to hear that, because there's a lot of people, you're saying this person's being empowered.
Of course, yeah, no. I mean, that is the social... the consensus is that you go, girl, you get your bag. Like, good for you. Feminism, you know, sexual movement.
Whatever.
All that good stuff. And...
money's not worth it.
Yeah, and it's hard, you know, because I know that the vast majority of women that that I'm around or that I know, you know, they're not thinking about their moral compass at all times of the day in the same way that I am, right? Where, you know, it's just different. A lot of women are different. So all of that to say, where do we go from here? I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
I often think about how would I raise my own children, or would my parents be proud if I did this thing, or am I carrying myself as someone who wants to have the vocation of a wife one day, right? As a child of God, am I doing things the best way that I can, so right? There's contradictions everywhere, everywhere.
You've come to a different plane where I didn't see this I didn't see that in you over the years. So it's I think religion certainly brought you your drifting to religion got you there, and now that you're in it. I'm okay with it all.
Yeah, so. I mean, even Jacob would be like, "Babe, what the this makes me so uncomfortable. This person that we know is doing this," and I'm like, "Dude, you don't get it because we're not there. We're not in it with them. We're completely just, you know, we have that barrier. We have that like bird's eye view, and let's keep it there."
That's
right?
That's it. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. Again, morality and modesty and all these words that we use to express how we view things. It's, you know, all that stuff is just, you know, it's taught at home. It's all about partying. It's all about raising kids the right way with the right level of understanding what respect is for the other parties, whether female or male. It's just it's no other way to slice it.
Yeah, and also understanding that, you know, prostitution is one of the oldest jobs in the book, but
it's profession.
You know, people there are people that do it for survival, and there are other people that are doing it for different reasons. And it's a very sad lifestyle.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I don't think any person does it because they love it, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
well,
what's up the next segment?
Well, then the segment, which is questions I always wanted to ask you, was going to be, what is it with the fucking red nail polish? That was going to be my question. Because, damn, that shit pissed me off so much when I was growing up. But I understand. Yeah. I understand now that it's... But, okay, so like I was saying earlier, we always say, if we had a daughter, what would we do, right? Being in Mexico, I was at the pool at the resort, and there was this little girl named Lucy, and, you know, this little girl, she was so cute. She was 7 years old, and, you know, she's jumping, doing cannonballs in the water, being a kid, right? Just being so fun and happy. And it's that like innocence that I loved, right? And, you know, she gravitated towards me. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Her mom's not giving her attention. She's coming to me, asking me to help her count how many seconds she's underneath the water. And she comes up, and her top is, you know, she's wearing a 2-piece, and her top comes up, and I'm like, Lucy, you want to pull your shirt down, you know, so no one sees you? And she's just like, what? Like, she's so clueless. But there are people that are monsters. So I'm like, babe, put your shirt down a little bit. And this is after multiple days of seeing her every day at the pool. So she knows who I am. And I'm telling her, you know, pull it down a little bit. And she's like, okay. And I tell Jacob, oh my God, our kid would not wear a 2-piece at that age. Hell no.
That's right.
Why do we need to let a little girl wear a 2-piece? And he's like, and he asked me, is that extreme? Did you wear a 2-piece? I'm like, fuck no, my dad didn't let me wear a 2-piece. Are you kidding me? I think I was allowed to wear a tankini when I was like maybe 13, 14 years old, you know, and then you realize.
Well, yeah, we have to give credit where credit's due, right? So I was probably less aware of certain things, but your mother certainly, and your stepmother certainly would not allow that kind of behavior.
Yeah,
so,
my mom
or not that kind of dress.
And my mom would tell me all the time, "You're too developed for your age, girl." Like, I'm sorry. Like, she would tell me, "I'm sorry, but that's just how it goes." And I'd be like, "What the fuck?" Like, but this bathing suit is cuter. The color is better.
Right.
Anyway, that was the question.
To answer the question simply. You know what? I may have to circle back on that one, you know, the red nail polish, because it was just an issue of age appropriateness. And remember, again, this is coming from your stepmother, right?
You would tell me the color red is a very strong color.
That's right.
That's a color for women. I'd be like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck are you talking about? In my child's mind, of course, I'd be like, is my dad crazy? See, that was constantly the question: are they crazy or am I
Because
crazy?
I would be told, go tell your daughter that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know what? You can't.
You're
can't
like, do.
Yeah,
Hey,
because
don't
you know
do
what?
that.
Don't do that, right? Don't wear that color. So I can respect the approach. So there you go.
So now we're looking forward, we're thinking, okay, would we do that? Like it's that time, we're in that time of our life where we'd be like, what would you do? And then
What would you do?
you know,
Unfortunately, what you'll do is you'll do the exact same thing because you find it maybe not understood then, but now you do, and you'll raise your daughter the exact same way.
see.
There you go. So
All right.
good talk. Good talk. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening in. Life and the Bitter Truth. We are on all of the platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, all of them. YouTube as well. So certainly like and subscribe.
And we look at the comments. So if
We
you have feedback or topics you want to talk about, things you want to know from us, from our life,
Sure.
we'd love to hear it and add it into next week's or the following week's episodes. Also, if you're in the LA OC area, my partner and I, we run a vintage shop out of UNDS. And if you like vintage, come and support. The address is 306 South Myrtle. Monrovia is so freaking cool. I love Monrovia. So come on down if you're interested in all that. And yeah, we'll see you all next week.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.